Oh, come on. You need to know all that.
Let's begin this brief mindful moment by finding a comfortable seat.
Okay.
Feet flat on the floor, hands uncrossed. Take 3 deep breaths. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Now we are going to practice a mindfulness activity called mindful eyes. Look at the various objects around you. Notice their shape, their color, their texture. Now notice the space between them, the light and the shadows, the brightness or darkness of the surrounding space. Maybe even notice something you have never seen before. Now take one last breath, breathing in, breathing out, and slowly return to the room.
Great, thank you. So I always like to say, these are some of the things that we shared with our teens when we were virtual, and some of the things that we incorporate into some of our meetings to just get people settled in and present for the session at hand. We will have people joining us and trickling in, but we have a nice group here today, right now already, and we'll just get started. So to start, my name is Sasha Marini. I am the Director of Humboldt County Teen Court, and Colette Serio is my cohort. Thank you for being here, Colette, and helping to moderate today's session. And if we can identify any other California Association of Youth Court board members, we've got Don Carney, if you can raise your hand, Karen Green, anyone else that I have not, Mickey is here, thank you, great. Nice to see you all. So our icebreaker question today, if you could just put it in the chat box, if you can answer the question, how can California Association of Youth Courts assist your youth court? How does it assist your youth court, or how could you imagine it assisting your youth court? So just drop that in the chat box. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually verbally introduce ourselves to each other. So I've already introduced myself and what program I'm associated with. And since it's hard to see how to pass it off to people, I'll make sure that I call on each person. So Colette, did you want to say something further?
I just want to introduce myself. My name is Colette Serio. I am a commissioner with the Los Angeles Superior Court, and I am Assistant Director of the David S. Wesley Los Angeles Teen Court Program and a board member.
Great. How about Sylvia? Sylvia Green?
Let me try to unmute myself before I'm talking away. I am Sylvia Green. I think at this point, I'm the administrator for Trinity Superior Court in Trinity County, Trinity Superior Court.
Great, great. Eduardo Quay.
Good afternoon. My name is Eduardo Quay. I'm the program manager for Santa Barbara Teen Court, and I have my student intern, Olivia Davenport, who's one of our student leaders. Is going to sit in with me today. Been with Teen Court for about 25 years, and this may be my last session with you all. I will be retiring in June.
Oh, wow.
Okay, thanks for letting us know. Nakia Prescott Horton.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nakia. I'm with Facilitative Solutions, and I'm their Director of Social Media.
Renata Valerie.
Good afternoon. My name is Grenada. You can call me Renata, anything except for Grenada with the G. I won't answer to Grenada. I am the Director of Facilitative Solutions, and I'm also a professor at Cal State University, Dominguez Hills.
Awesome. Mickey Chachki? I can never pronounce it right, sorry.
It's Chahusky, and that's okay. Nobody else can either. And I am a program specialist in the San Bernardino City Unified School District and helped launch the San Bernardino Restorative Youth Court. And I have the two colleagues that are taking over from me because I'm retiring on the call today.
Wow, a lot of retiring. Okay, Rebecca Harper.
Hi, I am one of Nikki's colleagues here in the San Bernardino Restorative Youth Court program.
Great. Denise Pittman Rosas?
Yes, hi, I am the Teen Peer Court and Restorative Programs Coordinator for Santa Cruz County Office of Education.
All right, Susan Swope.
Hello, I'm Susan Swope, and I'm with the San Mateo County Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Commission, and we are working to launch a Peer Point in San Mateo County.
Chuck Henson.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Chuck Henson, the Chief Probation Officer for Sierra County, Judge Charles Irvin's home county. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
Great. Stacy Leek.
Yes. Are we doing introductions?
Introducing yourself and what organization you're associated with, if you're a youth court or not.
Okay, my name is Stacy Leek, and I'm associated with SBCUSD, Positive Youth Development, and also SBRYC with Mickey Chahowski.
Great. How about Carlos Corona?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Carlos Corona from the DA's office out here in Riverside County, and I'm part of our crime prevention unit.
Angela Medrano.
Hi, I'm Angela Medrano with the Intertribal Court of Southern California. We've been launching a tribal youth court. We're home-based out of the Rincon Reservation near Valley Center, San Diego County.
Great. Dwight Lomaze.
Yes, that's a difficult name. Even I get tripped up on it. So my name is Dwight Lomaze. I'm with the Intertribal Court of Southern California. I'm working with Judge Medrano in developing the Tribal Youth Court and in Rincon, California.
Great. Valerie Whitaker.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Valerie Whitaker. I am the Family Services Manager with the Agave Project, which is part of the Intertribal Court of Southern California.
And my name is Brianna Mason. I'm the advocate. I'm also on Valerie's law.
Austin Willis.
I'm Austin. Like Susan, I'm from the program in San Mateo County.
Carrie Zoller.
Hi, I'm Carrie Zoller. I'm with the Judicial Council of California, and I work with the collaborative courts and work in conjunction with CAYC sometimes.
Emily.
Hi, good morning or good afternoon. The last name is very hard. It's pronounced Grishon. I had the pleasure of meeting with Judge Irving this afternoon, and we were recently connected. I'm with the Council of Criminal Justice and Behavioral Health, and we're doing an evidence-based compendium and toolkit for juveniles throughout the state. So we're just hoping to learn a little bit more about what the juveniles are looking for.
And Sue Young. All right, Don Carney.
Don Kearney, Director of Youth Transforming Justice, and I am a board member.
And Karen Green.
You're muted, Karen.
Hi, we'll try that again. Karen Green here in Placer County. I serve as the treasurer for the California Association of Youth Courts, and I've been involved with the youth court movement since 1990, and here in Placer County, and then across the state, as well as across the nation. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of history here coming up.
Great, and then last we have Julie Alley. We're just introducing ourselves and what program we're associated with.
Hi, I'm with Facilitative Solutions. Sorry if I'm a little quiet. I'm just coming out of the dentist office and my mouth is really numb. So, but I'm happy to be here, learn more about the program.
Great. All right, I think we've introduced everyone. Thank you so much. It's great to just see a breadth of experience and perspective here. So before I pass it off to Colette, I just wanted to put forefront what the roundtable goals are for today. It's really to answer the questions who, what, when, where, why, how much about California Association of Youth Courts, and get to know how you can get better involved with CAYC, as well as build some connection with other youth court coordinators. So that's our goals for today, and I'm going to pass it off to Colette.
Thank you. Thank you, Sasha. Today, we are very fortunate to have two main leaders of our California Association of Youth Courts. Our presenter is going to be Judge Charles Irvin, and we will have a historical perspective from Karen Green. Karen, before I give the full introduction of Judge Irvin, would you give a little background on your association with CAYC?
Sure. Thank you. I came to the youth court movement as a public high school counselor. And actually, I have to say that when I was in high school in the late 1950s, we actually had a student court at Fresno High School. So I didn't even know that those early years would take me on a path that would follow me here so many years later. The California Association of Youth Courts came into being as a result of the national movement. In 1990-91, in response to the high amount of juvenile crime that the state was seeing, youth courts came up on the radar of Judge Cousins here in Placer County, who was serving on the juvenile court bench. He knew of a program up in Humboldt County, and he very much liked it. And along with leaders here from education, juvenile justice, probation, district attorneys, public defenders, he wanted to investigate that program as a response to what to do with first-time juvenile offenders here in Placer County. And I applied for the position as I had just lost my counseling position at the local high school, who decided that under the education funding, they couldn't afford to have counselors at the high school any longer. So I was the last to hire, and if you've been in education, you know last to hire means first to fire. So I was counseling. I didn't want to go back to teaching. And this opportunity came up to apply for this position. And long story short, I was selected to head the first and growing or the first infancy of this Placer County Peer Court program. Fortunately, I was invited up to Humboldt County, and for 2 days, I followed and shadowed and learned so much from the youth courts up there that was in operation. They were so generous in sharing their forms and their knowledge and mistakes they'd made, and helping us to avoid those here in Placer County. And we began then to form a program here in Placer County that involved not only trying juvenile first-time offenders in sort of the traditional youth court model at the time, but we also had the opportunity through the superintendent of public education here in the county to provide a week-long curriculum out in 18 high schools in the county involving juvenile laws, helping young people avoid getting into the system by being more knowledgeable about what juvenile laws were and how their lives could be impacted should they come crosswise with those laws. So we proceeded, and everything was cooking along fine. And as we began to grow, there was interest here from numbers of counties. Gee, we think that's a great idea. Could you come and help us start one? And so we had a little dog and pony show that we on the road and train many counties here in the state. At the same time, there was growing interest at the national level. And in 1999, we had the sort of a first informal networking in Aurora, Colorado. And at that time, we were working not only with OJJDP, the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, but also we were introduced to the involvement in the American Probation and Parole Association and the work that they were doing to help further these youth court movements. OJJDP took a look at these growing courts across the country and decided that we really needed to be a standalone organization at the national level. And they put a few $1 million into effort to bring originally about 44 of us together nationwide, and we began to have meetings right shortly after Katrina hit the country. So most of our meetings were held in New Orleans as the federal government was trying to improve the economy in New Orleans, and they wanted to do so by supporting businesses in the area. There was a project director, Scott Peterson, and he, along with the 44 of us, began to knock out bylaws and what an organization might look like nationally, take on the nonprofit, et cetera. California had been invited to this, participate in this organization, and we were represented by Judge Cousins and myself, and Patrick Dana from the Judicial, and the Santa Cruz youth representative at the time. We worked very hard and began to form the National Association. That all came into being about 2007. And out of that, California was awarded a $5,000 grant from OJJDP to establish a statewide association. So that's how CAYC came into being. We gathered our friends and that we're having youth courts across the state, and we decided that it would be great to get together, and that all led to the first summit. That was held in Santa Cruz, and the youth summits then became an annual event throughout the state. We've grown substantially over the years, trying to provide more and more services, establishing a website, getting more folks involved, and always recognizing that though there may be many models and folks do it differently county to county, that the main purpose was to try and divert kids early on from moving through the system, getting involved in the criminal justice system as a lifelong event, quickly identifying through whatever their traumas were, whatever their issues were, holding them accountable, hopefully educating them on juvenile laws and getting them back on the right path so that we don't continue the school to prison pipeline. So that's just kind of a brief, very quick timeline on how California Association of Youth Court came into being. And we just are welcoming new friends and colleagues annually. And we're so happy to have all of you with us today. And Judge Irvin is going to share with us some of the dues of the association. And we're definitely looking forward to hearing some of your ideas on how the association can better serve you.
Thank you, Karen. I really appreciate that. Judge Urban, we were not ignoring you when everybody was being introduced and being called on. I wanted to be the one to introduce you. Being a fellow bench officer, I think it's an extreme honor that I can present you today. Serving on the Sierra County Superior Court since 2011, Judge Urban handles all case types and sits on assignments throughout various courts in Northern California. He is a member of the California Judges Association Judicial Outreach Committee, the California Judicial Council's Collaborative Justice Court Advisory Committee, and its juvenile subcommittees. He also serves as a trustee on the boards of Kids Managing Conflict, which distributes grants for teaching peer mediation, conflict resolution skills in K through 12th grade. He also is on the board of the Niroga Institute, which equips youth with dynamic mindfulness skills. In 2019, we are very lucky with CAYC in that Judge Urban was elected our president of our association. I mean, he always worked 24/7, but he works 24/7 now as the president of CAYC. He is focused on positioning and building CAYC to proliferate youth courts throughout the state. He is an avid supporter of justice for youth by youth. You know, he is so darn busy, but I did find out one little thing about him. He likes antiquing. He likes going to garage sales. And you know, one more man's junk is another man's treasure, or as that saying goes, he is our treasure. Judge Urban, thank you for your participation today. May we hear from you.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Serio. That was really too kind of you. You expanded upon my bio generously. I thank you for that. I'm going to talk under the larger topic of redesigning youth justice, because join me in the top of a funnel here as I go through kind of a general overview of what we try to achieve in establishing youth courts, that we get down to a session where we can talk about specific instances and our own experiences with the various organizations that are here today. And incidentally, redesigning youth justice is the topic which was chosen by our Youth Advisory Committee Council to be the name of the youth summit that's going to be produced June 24th and 25th this year. Under that heading, though, we're trying to dovetail with the new Office of Youth and Community Restoration vision, which is as follows. The office's mission is to promote trauma-responsive, culturally informed services for youth involved in the juvenile justice system that support the youth's successful transition into adulthood and help them become responsible, thriving, and engaged members of their communities. This is where CAYC as an organization comes in. We're trying to help assimilate all of the moving parts at the grassroots level with kids in every community, every school district, all four corners of the state of California. In let's say a more general sense, because democracy is open, it is vulnerable, but also resilient and able to learn, improve, and be responsive to popular wisdom. It now needs to evolve, especially in its responses to conflict and its ability to welcome diversity and dissent. The key to doing so is in its ability to turn adversarial win-lose, power or rights-based political and judicial processes into collaborative, democratic, win-win, interest-based and trauma-informed ones that follow the rule of law and transform conflicts into social problem-solving outside of the formal juvenile justice system. The whys of doing so are now obvious. It's the hows we need to address. We can begin simply and locally with 10 steps. And I'm going to speak rapidly, and if anybody wishes to have a copy of my script here, I'll be happy to share it. First, we need to strengthen our skills and receive training and teach youth the full range of conflict resolution methods, including diverse forms of mediation and models of youth peer teen courts, as well as dialogue and circle facilitation, consensus building, informal problem solving, collaborative negotiation, nonviolent communication, appreciative inquiry, restorative justice and conflict resolution systems design. These are things that are kind of floating around there on a policy level of, what's best for us locally. And each community is different. Second, we need to join and become active in organizations that are working to furnish options and helping to improve the lives of youth as the juvenile justice system evolves from a criminal fault-based system to more of a behavioral health, restorative justice, and remedial focused approach. Third, we need to email, call, or personally contact local city, county, and school officials. It takes personal involvement by everyone who is interested in the youth justice movement. We need, number 4, reach out to local activists and organizations to engage youth at an early age. Youth organizations such as Scouting, YMCA, YWCA, and other youth-centered organizations, service clubs such as Rotary International, Lions Club, Kiwanis, Active 2030 Club, and the like. This also includes outreach on social media platforms. There are myriad other resources that are out there who are thirsty for being able to do something to help youth turn the corner and emerge and I use the analogy of the phoenix emerging from the ashes as we emerge from COVID right now. A 5th step would be to contact local law enforcement, including police and sheriff's departments, and offer to conduct quick morning presentations for officers on practical de-escalation, active listening, emotional calming, and mediation techniques. Facilitate community meetings to discuss ways of prioritizing funding to reward efforts at de-escalation, nonviolent communication, problem solving, mediation, and restorative justice. Discuss community policy, policing, review boards, and similar trauma-informed approaches to conflict resolution. What we're trying to do overall is stop the school to prison pipeline. For too long, it's just been business as usual, and now we're on the threshold of a new era in juvenile justice. Number 6, write articles, op-ed pieces, and letters to local and national newspapers, magazines, and social media, instilling the early engagement of youth in conflict resolution processes. Number 7, become involved in the Student Attendance Review Board. That's the SARB process at a local school. Start or support local school youth-based mediation diversion programs which help interdict truancy, bullying, and school-centered conflict. Volunteer to help train students, parents, and teachers and administrators in peer mediation, trauma-informed conflict resolution processes. Offer to resolution approaches and techniques which will help youth stay out of the formal juvenile justice system. 8th, contact local law enforcement, school teachers and administrators, political leaders, elected officials, political party representatives. Invite them to view the conflict resolution processes which are employed in your own youth, peer, teen court environment. The easiest outreach is to the neighboring school or school district or the neighboring county or the neighboring city. There is a need, there is a demand for what can we do to help solve the problems that we face. The traditional methods of addressing these issues simply don't work, especially in the school system with the hybrid learning environment. 9th, ask to appear before local city councils and boards of supervisors to gain support for starting, expanding, strengthening, and increasing funding for collaborative, participative, mediative, and other youth-based processes for conflict resolution and building civic awareness and responsibility. One of the most glaring absent topics from today's high school or even middle school curriculum would be just basic civics, how to behave in society, what are the things that are expected, what are the talents and tools that need to be in the hands of our youth today in order to survive, all the vicissitudes of life that face them. We've just had a huge acid test with COVID. 10th, and this is probably the most important, at every possible point, get youth a seat at the table where youth issues are up for discussion. The viewpoint of youth is too often ignored and left out altogether. The new young adults today are our citizens who will be the parents and leaders of our society in the next decade. If they are not at the table, they are on the menu. I actually Googled that, and there's some historical etiology for that. Our youth have perspective and experience which is unique to the societal times in which we live. They can and should be involved in building the justice structure to achieve justice for youth by youth. Now, we're moving down the funnel toward what the objectives were today, and it was, the who, what, when, where, why, how much. Who? The who is you, and that's you can become a member and connect with the organization, and as the organization makes contacts and affiliations and brings about alliances with other organizations that can fulfill youth-centered activities and justice processes, you will come with the organization and you can share experiences with the organization and help others sustain the effort. What is promote youth-involved conflict resolution skills and creation of youth, peer, teen court, and youth justice council platforms to facilitate justice for youth by youth. Let the kids figure this out. They know things that parents don't. We're all kids at one time. And believe me, I know that I see things through a different lens now than I did then. I spoke a different language when I was talking with my parents, but they're speaking a different language when they talk with us now. When? Now. Well, you know, I ask rhetorically, when's the best time to plant a tree? Well, that's 20 years ago. When's the next best time? That's right now. We need to get boots on the ground and make the momentum sustainable and grow the movement that's taking place right now across the state and across the country. Where? In your school environment and the greater community. I've described some of the contact points that are important to make in that regard. Why? Well, I think one of the main reasons is to emerge from COVID with cause, commitment, and tools to succeed. More now than ever before, there's so much confusion about what to do, and it's not so much what should have been done, it's what do we do next? And I think it's equip our kids with the tools to, you know, resolve conflict and engage in restorative type processes which keep kids out of the school to prison pipeline. How? Well, follow the guidelines that I just laid out. Those are just some suggestions. How much? Well, to me, it's every day. I think about, you know, how I could do something to help youth and improve justice for youth by youth just about 24/7. I realize that I get the biggest bang for my buck for invested time as a judicial officer doing judicial outreach. If I can influence one kid off the wrong path and get him or her on the right path, he or she will bring their friends, relatives, and acquaintances along on the right path. And there's a multiplier effect. Those friends, relatives, and acquaintances will in turn get kids on the right path. And let's see, in concluding my remarks, just share that we just went through a mission, vision, and values exercise in April. And some of the major points that came out of that the organization, that's California Association of Youth Courts, CAYC, is focusing on is number one, building CAYC as a learning community of and about youth court and related opportunities. Two, ensuring meaningful youth voice involvement in decision-making, which I think is among the most important. Three, share evaluations to help youth courts determine best practices, what is working among different types of youth courts, training for partners on the best practices. Four, creating a formal staff role for CAYC to support accomplishment of strategic plan goals. We, at this point, don't have a full-time staff support. We're purely a volunteer organization. Oftentimes, there's a lot that devolves on one or more of the board members, but we seem to be able to get things done. In the future, we'll be reaching out for funding opportunities. Recently, we were able to receive a study that was accomplished by the CSU Dominguez Hills graduate students, which has given us some guidance on how we can better meet the needs of our constituency, and that would be the individual youth courts and those who wish to start them around the state. So CAYC uniquely represents the broader youth court and youth justice movement in California. CAYC has successfully supported youth courts throughout the state by bringing them together to enrich their programs with resources and provided opportunities for youth enrichment experiences. Over the years, it's been via an in-person youth summit, generally the last week of June when school's out and kids haven't left on vacation. And it would alternate between Northern and Southern college or university campuses. Problem with COVID is that got cut off. So this will be our second virtual summit. These are extremely engaging and enriching experiences. And last year and this year, they are entirely student, that is youth designed with the assistance of adults in getting the technical details and contracting arranged. with that, I would like to invite discussion of any of the concepts that people would like to talk about here and now.
Yeah, feel free to put stuff in the chat box or raise your hand. Yeah, opening it up.
Judge Irwin, this is Renata.
Hi, Professor.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
You know, something that you just shared is something we've talked about just with our team, our graduate students. And I think it really resonates with the youth is creating the spaces, particularly with circles and other restorative processes, and training them how to hold those circles to work with their peers. The other thing I thought that you said that was really important is giving them, you know, that sense of empowerment and building their resilience, because we all have experienced trauma to some degree. I know over this past 2 years with the pandemic, we all have had, you know, sort of our ups and downs, but I don't see it when talking with youth. They aren't given the tools, the skills to be able to communicate without being frustrated, you know, without their frustration. So having them trained in, you know, de-escalation techniques, especially in communication, that's where you see a lot of conflict with youth, is how they express their anger. So providing, you know, workshops or opportunities for them to get that kind of training, I think will go a long way in addressing some of the tensions, and more than likely, I think you'll see less of an impact of youth having to go through the courts. The other thing I think is really important is how you design your youth courts. Having them be truly restorative in terms of structure. I know it's sometimes, you know, I worked in courts, in the criminal courts for years, and it's very intimidating, you know, for an adult to walk into a courtroom. But I think you can create spaces that are inviting for youth to come in and still hold them accountable for whatever they've done. But you've got to create it in such a way that they're coming in, they recognize they have a peer there, someone that they can relate to. I think having a peer do, you know, any intake or initial conversation is creating that space for them to understand, yes, you made a mistake. We want to understand how we can help you so you don't repeat that mistake. So designing your spaces, your youth courts, so that youth don't feel as though it's all punishment. Yes, there's a level of accountability, but there's also this other side where you have the second chance. So that's just
we also have something in the chat box. We've got, are police officers involved in youth court? If so, how? Are some youth courts strictly youth with just some guidance? And Dawn, do you want to answer that? Try and go for that, or anyone else on the running a youth court? I know it's very diverse.
Sure. The only police involvement, law enforcement involvement we have is taking referrals from law enforcement. So there are several different agencies in Marin County that will refer directly to the youth court rather than routing it through probation, because that gives a young person 2 records to expunge instead of 1. And the youth court here in Marin County is adult supported. We have a Superior Court judge or somebody with a JD read a script, but the kids run the entire proceeding. They do the determination of the restorative plan, and our youth also train other youth. I haven't had to lead a training in 10 years. It's great to have the older kids train the younger kids, and they're much more receptive to learning from each other than they are from people who are significantly older than they are.
have Ed has his hand raised, and then Colette.
Thank you. Yeah, our Santa Barbara Teen Court in South Santa Barbara County exclusively receives referrals from our law enforcement partners, which could include the Santa Barbara Police Department, the Sheriff's Department, the District Attorney investigators, or even local park rangers. I think one of the aspects of the restorative side of it is really they have letters of apology, but sometimes there's letters of gratitude that go to the officer, and it's changing the dynamic of the relationship with the minor and law enforcement when they're looking at the officer is not citing to tail, nail, and jail a minor into a system, but looking more at using intervention as a corrective measure to help them make better choices. I think this is something that we nurture with our jury of peers, and we stepped away from having a procrastinator and an advocate litigating the case, so to say, and have a true jury of peers asking the questions and giving a sense, because the spirit of the sense, we even go away from sense. The spirit of the contract is based upon helping the student make better choices, and how can we help a student or save a student coming into our youth courts asking for help. And so it's not based on a sentence, quote unquote, of punishment, but based on a restorative approach that helps them give back for what they've done, and at the same time give themselves a chance to have a better life. And I think when they hear that coming from the teens, is as much as this is what we recommend you do, but this is why we came to the decision, where they're justifying it in this courtroom with the minor, the kid hears it. The minors hear that, and it really makes a difference. Where law enforcement is involved in it, we do have some education classes like our traffic safety class that is actually taught by officers that come in to make the presentations in the class. We sometimes have officers come into our crime awareness class, or sometimes our life choices class, where the officers make presentations as for part of the session. And it opens up a dialogue for teenagers in that classroom setting with the officers. And at the same time, what we want to do is change the dynamic of that relationship, because sometimes it can be very antagonistic, and changing one to is more collaborative. And sometimes when I share this, and it often happens because I have the same conversations when I have meetings with the officers during the beat trainings that take place with the officers, or reports of this is what we've done with Teen Court and this is some of the outcomes. Because for officers, when they write a citation, they do not often see or recognize or understand what happens after the citation done. Once the citation is written, and let's say it's pushed over to the probation department, then it's really out of their hands and they don't know what the outcome has been. And so when we give reports to officers and saying this is what the outcome is, or when they receive that letter of gratitude from that minor and says, hey, thank you for giving me this chance at Teen Court. I know you could have sent me to probation. I could have gone a whole different direction, but this has meant something for me. Thank you very much. Then it really builds in that relationship, and really helps the kid feel a lot more connected to the community, and they really take the program more to heart of what's taking place. So it's not something that they have to do. It's something that they want to do because they want to get better.
Thank you. Yeah. So before I go to Colette, I'm going to read some of the things that were in the chat box, and the focus being, how can CAYC help you? And some people said providing training for our students and for our youth court facilitators, sharing resources, how to inspire adults to participate in restorative justice training and practices, And I want you to think in the next 10 minutes, we have about another 10 minutes before we wrap it up, to think about questions you have in regards to how can CAYC help you. Let's continue to discuss that. And Colette, we'll head to you.
I'll just take less than a minute. Carlos, I wanted to answer your question. We are involved with the Los Angeles Police Department, local police agencies, Sheriff's Department, probation. We get cases actually from the juvenile court based on the recommendation of the DA and the public defender. So we get cases from all sources, including school police. We are peer driven. We have 2 judges, sometimes 3, handle a session, but it is the kids sitting as jurors asking questions. We have no prosecutor, no defense attorney, kids and kids. And that's my quick response.
Awesome, thank you. Carlos, it looks like you have a lot of questions about the logistics of running a program. Maybe one of us can follow up with you and dive into that a little bit more. I wanna see if there's any piece of how can CAYC help you? And maybe that's one of the ways, Carlos, helping new people get started. Have you engaged with CAYC in that level of, hey, I'm not sure if you're starting a new youth court or considering it. Have you reached out to us and engaged with us to share resources?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Now, I haven't reached out. That's why I'm kind of inquiring, see if there's some models out there that are maybe listed on the website. Maybe, you know, that's an idea. That way, if someone is creating their own or they already have one, they can kind of see what other groups are doing and maybe incorporate what the other groups are doing, or at least have a format that they can look at if they're trying to create their own.
So there's a couple things that can guide you. One is, and I don't believe it, I've looked for it on our CAYC website. The Judicial Council of California created a recent toolkit, and that's a multi-page document that should be on our website. I don't believe it is currently, but that's something that we can share out with you. And then also on our website, we do have a map that shows all the regions of where youth courts are. And if you click into there, it can show who your regional liaison is that covers your area. For if you don't have a youth court started, there is someone within CAYC who's dedicated to your specific region that you can reach out to, but you can reach out to any of us and we can connect you to different resources, have a phone conversation. If you're close by, we can come and meet with you. I know up in my county, I'm going out to Hoopa Tribal Court to help them start up a tribal youth court. And I was happy to hear Angela and her cohorts are on here, and maybe I'll even try and connect them. So CAYC can kind of be a point of contact and connection and sharing of best practices. So
Carlos, we're starting a new teen court in LA. The session is May 24th. If you contact me, I will give you the Zoom link and I'd be happy for you to join us.
Thank you, Colette. Thank you, Sasha.
Great. Any other input about how CAYC can help you? And I'm hoping that CAYC board members are taking note and that so we can follow up on these pieces.
I have another item I can share. I had the meeting with the folks this afternoon. It was Brenda Grealish and Emily Grishon at the Council on Criminal Justice and Behavioral Health. And at the conclusion of that, we agreed that we're going to work together and try to identify state level boards and commissions where youth concepts and topics are the main topics at hand, and obtain a seat at the table for youth. And so please stay tuned and visit our website, because there will be an outreach, because we want to have youth from every corner of the state apply for, the opportunity to serve as a youth advisory member on these commissions. That's my primary role at this point in trying to push all of the adults that are out there that are talking about youth concepts without youth at the table, to get them at the table so that they can re-guide some of the adult thinking that in certain instances needs to be significantly redirected. So please do visit the website and keep tuned for that. Stay tuned for that.
Thank you for sharing that. Anyone have other ideas of how CAYC can support you? We're really open to a reciprocal communication line in terms of what we have to offer and keeping you abreast of what we have coming up, but we're also really like to know what the needs are. Yeah, Don?
Yeah, I'd like to invite anybody that would like to observe one of our proceedings. We hold them on Zoom every Wednesday from 4:30 to 5:30. And we often have several observers at each proceeding. And you need to be sworn in. And then after the proceeding, you can come back on screen and we'll discuss your questions and comments about the program. So it's a good way to get a snapshot of at least how one program works.
Don, do you want to put your contact in the chat box or let people know how to get in touch? Yeah, thank you. Anyone else?
Sasha, this is Karen. I just want to encourage folks to reach out and make sure that in your planning and in your early implementation that you've got youth involved. I think it's very easy to bring the adults together that you think are going to have interest or that might present questions about your forming a youth court program, but the youth can sell the program. And I know many counties now are establishing youth commissions, usually appointed through their board of supervisors, their county board of supervisors. So I would suggest that you take a look at those young people that come from usually multiple schools and reach out to a group maybe of young people that's already established and introduce the concept that you would like to start a youth court, explain it a bit and see if they would help you. But don't leave youth from the table, as Judge Irvin is encouraging us to make sure that we actually find a seat for those young people so that their voices are heard as part of the planning.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that. When we started ours, we started it with kids who were in the county school with the juvenile DA. And that was quite an interesting conversation because he was the one that prosecuted them and put them in that school. So that was a very robust kind of conversation that really rooted our program, both in the institutions that deal with young people and with the young people who are most impacted by those institutions.
Thank you.
I think that's a really good point, Dawn, because I think the tendency sometimes is that, oh, I'm going to look at those top students at the high school, the AP student or the honors student, and you want a few of those kids, but I can tell you from doing this many, many years that some of my strongest leaders came from that C or D student or the student who maybe was not regularly coming to school, but you reach out to those kids that have experienced trauma, that haven't necessarily been successful, that don't necessarily have the support systems that some of your top academic students have. Be sure that you've got a well-rounded representation of young people.
Great. I'm gonna wrap up with some upcoming opportunities and put in the chat box our evaluation form for this session. I'd love to thank Judge Irvin as well as Karen in presenting a historical perspective on CAYC. Judge Irvin, thank you so much for opening this discussion and allowing this interactive conversation. And I'm going to stop recording to do these next pieces.